Welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast, the world's leading authority on childcare marketing, mindset, expansion, and profitability. Each episode will feature interviews with the brightest minds in the childcare industry to guide you into becoming a smarter business leader. Our hosts have opened 10 schools while raising 5 children. They are certified business coaches and are the top-selling childcare business book authors of all time. This episode is sponsored by Childcare Genius Marketing. Let Childcare Genius Marketing help you get fully enrolled and fully staffed. Visit childcaregenius.com for more details. Let's welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast our hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre.
Hi, Thomas. Welcome to Childcare Genius Podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi, Brian. I'm doing really well today. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it very much. Carol is off running some errands today. We just moved places down here in Florida, so she's getting things prepared in our other place to sell. So it's just me today. So sorry, you're going to have to deal with me, but we're going to talk a little bit about finance, which is probably one of my favorite top subjects. So I've known Thomas for over 20 years, long time, over half his life, just a fraction of mine. But anyway, we're good friends. He's actually the CFO of Childcare Genius, and I stole him from a credit union where he was a senior person there. I'll let him tell his story in his background. But he knows numbers, he knows finance very well, and I figured he was the perfect guest to have on. He just spoke at our Childcare Genius Legacy Conference in Las Vegas, and knows what he's talking about when it comes to finance. So Thomas, tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from and what you do now.
Sure. Well, thank you for that very warm and honestly rather undeserved welcome. Like Brian said, I have known him for a long time now, him and Carol. They've been wonderful friends over the years. So I was very encouraged and flattered and honored to come work for them when they gave me the opportunity to do so in a couple capacities. Yes, I did work in the credit union world for about a decade, and I specialized in mostly residential consumer lending, but also some commercial as well. That was my passion. I really enjoyed helping people help make their dreams come true, right? When they wanted to buy their first home or sometimes buy their first car or maybe venture out and buy investment properties or expand their businesses. So all things that I look forward to. Did much in as far as the audit world goes, prepared for a lot of audits. So I really understood the structure of the credit union from a lending perspective. And I'm hoping to help bring some of that to Childcare Genius.
Yeah, obviously, our members and our listeners and our audience in the childcare world normally have to take debt on to start a childcare business, and normally take more debt on and more debt on as the business grows. And debt is not necessarily a bad thing. So we're going to talk about different debts today. We're going to talk about how to prepare yourself to borrow. Let's just say you're a home provider right now and you want to get that first school. We'll talk about like the steps you would need to take. And to, just in disclosure, Thomas actually runs my property management company. Carol and I own a lot of investment property, and Thomas actually our manager who manages every one of our properties up in Maine. And recently he's come on as our CFO at Childcare Genius as well. So he knows numbers. He deals with financial. He deals with investment properties all the time. So the first thing we want to talk about, Thomas, is, when I won 10, 12 years ago, somewhere around there, maybe 10 or 11 years ago, I knew I had to start borrowing money if I wanted to buy investment properties. I knew I just didn't have enough cash, and I knew I needed to leverage somebody else's money to make even more money. So the first thing I did was go and establish a relationship with a banker. So let's talk about the importance of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that I really wanted to convey at the conference this year is the importance of having a relationship with somebody that you trust, especially in the banking world, right? Our money is important. Our finances are very important because they determine whether or not we're going to stay in business or be successful. So one of the things that I spoke about was, how do I find somebody that I trust? Well, that might not be the first person that you interact with. And we want somebody that's friendly. We want somebody that's knowledgeable. We want somebody that's going to put your needs first, right? So we want to make sure that they have a genuine care in your business. That was one of the reasons why I promoted credit unions over the years, is because not only as a lender, but also as somebody who was a consumer, I didn't feel like just a number, right? Brian, have you ever felt like just a number in the banking world before?
Well, I've been a credit union member for 30 years, so I can't even remember how long ago I've been at a bank. But I had a great relationship with a credit union. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm always going to promote credit unions. If there's a good one in your area and you're looking to do something like that, I'd check them out first. There are some smaller community banks that do a good job as well, but make sure you find somebody that's knowledgeable and seems to want to put you and your business first. It makes you feel like a human being.
Oh, for sure. And basically, what I did when I talked to this girl, Christy, she was the person who I met with, I think 11 or 12 years ago. And I said, what do I need to do to put myself in a position? Like, here's my personal financial statement, which I think is important. We'll talk about that a little later. Um, and she let me know how to line things up, what to do, the loan process itself. Like, she made me feel comfortable that the borrowing would be a smooth process. And even though it's a scary thing, the first time taking on, six-figure debt, and I've taken on seven-figure debt since then, multiple times, it's scary. And having somebody that take some of that scared away and make you feel a little more comfortable is just so important.
I remember one of the things you said years ago was that, as a business owner, right, and as a leader, you didn't always have to be the smartest person in the room, but you had to have people in the room with you that knew what they were talking about. And that's what you want in a lender or anybody that you do business with. So, um, it can be tough to navigate those financial waters. There's a lot of red tape in banking, so we want to make sure you have an asset in your corner that can help you with that.
Sure. So take two or three people, test them out. Basically, you're interviewing them. Who's going to be your money guy or girl? And since I've gone to this one credit union, I've been loyal in all my business for the last 12 years. Of all my borrowing has been through them. I've stayed loyal, and they also know that I'm not adverse to trying somebody else if they don't give me a good deal on a rate. So, I know where usually the market is, and if they tell me a rate, I could push back a little bit and say, I think we could do a little bit better here, for the amount of business I do. And that kind of relationship is important. You're not going to get that for the first time deal, but you will get it as you establish a relationship and been with them a little bit. They have to make money too. I understand that, but they will work with you and they want to keep good business and they don't want to lose somebody over a quarter point. I could tell you that. So, all right, so we're going to move on to the next topic. So, how do you prepare yourself, Thomas, to take on, a $1 million debt to buy a daycare building? Like, it just seems so daunting when maybe your house costs 200,000 or 300,000, and you get this $1 million building. Or in some cases, I have clients that their first purchase is two, three, four, $5 million daycare center. That's a huge bite. How do you prepare for that?
Right. So there's some mechanical things that we can do, right, as a business owner. Um, Paperwork that you're going to need to prepare for that interview or when you sit down with your lender. But there's also some things you need to be invested in your own business. You need to understand what it is that you're doing, right? You need to have a personal financial statement. You should understand your numbers long before coming and talking to me. And that doesn't mean that I can't help you through that, but we want to make sure that you understand, your profit and loss, right? What's coming and going. As far as paperwork goes, you definitely need to make sure you have your tax returns together, right? 2 to 3 years of your personal, and depending on how long you've been in business, anywhere between 2 and 5, right? Each lender is different. Profit and loss. Do you understand your enrollment trends, right? What are they like at different times of the year? I know summer can be challenging for some, and maybe fall is less challenging. Do you have a wait list, right? How popular are you in your area? Do you have an owner resume, right? What does your experience look like? And another real big one is something I'd hope to talk about maybe on Genius Hour sometime is a business plan, right? How many people actually have a business plan if you don't have something on paper? Because most banks or credit unions aren't going to lend to you if you don't have one.
Yeah, somewhere like that. I've never done a business plan personally. Not that that's the right thing. My banks never asked for one, thankfully,
Sure.
but some do. But I have a plan. I have a successful business before I got in there. I had made millions in childcare already before I went and ever asked for a penny from a bank. So it was a little different scenario. If you're just starting, you're a teacher now, and you want to buy a childcare, you better have a darn business plan because they're not going to do it without it. And your personal finances are where they're going to look at the most. If you're late on your own payments, personal, they're not going
Yeah.
to lend to you on a daycare building that because if you're risky with your own personal money, your car payment, your credit cards, you're probably a much bigger risk when it comes to bigger numbers. So the first thing I would recommend probably is getting your financial house in order even a year or two before you even think about buying. Is that about a good scenario? Maybe longer? Well, like what time frame should they start really focus on getting their credit score good and their finances in good shape?
Oh, I think that's an excellent point of view, right? And as far as your own personal credit, that's something you can look at today, right? Regardless of how far in the future you want to do something in your business, you should want to understand your personal credit today. Take a look. There's so many free resources out there where you can check your credit score and your credit file. And also, check out your business credit. Find out if you have any, right? I talked about this at the conference, signing up for a Dun and Bradstreet number, using a service like Nav or Experian that can give you a peek into your business credit portfolio. Maybe you have one, maybe you don't, but it doesn't really matter either way. You should find out. So I would definitely do that. And I would also find out, what does my personal debt look like? How heavily leveraged am I already, right? You were talking about that a second ago. Do I have a lot of unsecured debt, high interest credit cards, personal loans? Do I have a mortgage, car payments? Because you're 100% right, Brian. When I didn't have a whole lot to look at from a business perspective from somebody, I have to look at their personal financial health. So it can be the deciding factor between a loan or not.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I mean, even if you have maybe not shaky credit now, and maybe you're not the best, you could start today getting on your road, and 2 or 3 years from now, there is a possibility, without a doubt, with the right decisions now and the right actions, you can get that. It's not a lifetime scarring. You don't get a scarlet letter on whenever you know, there are, the average millionaire in America has gone bankrupt twice before they get there. So, banks do realize corporations and businesses do have issues. It's what you've done in the last couple of years is what they're really going to look at is recent history. And how smart you are at that. Do you save money? Do you put money away? Do you have a rainy day fund? Do you have savings? Do you live below your means? They're looking for all these things to see if you have good money management and where your priorities lie. If you're making 20,000 a year and you got an $80,000 car, that is kind of be a red flag for a banker, I believe. When you got a $1,500 a month car loan, you're only making 3 grand. So it's that kind of money management. But if you got an older car and it's paid for, you're smart with it with the money. So it's just, I would say, the bankers are going to be looking for how good you are at managing. But don't worry about the past. Start today. 3 years from now, you could be in a really good position. And it may seem far in the future. 3 years goes by like that. And it was just 11 years ago or 12 years ago, Carol and I started buying properties. And now we've got tons of them. And it's all about making that decision and getting that process right. And my decision started years before I actually did it. I got myself in a position to win. All right, so let's move on to debt, Thomas. There are smart debt, and I write about it in my book, Childcare Multimillionaire. If you don't have a copy of my book, Childcare Multimillionaire, go to my website today, childcaregenius.com, get a free copy. I'll even pay for the shipping if you're a center owner anywhere in the United States. I will not ship this out of the US. You have to get that on Amazon. But you want a free copy of Childcare Millionaire, Multimillionaire. You get on the website. We talk about smart debt versus dumb debt.
Dangerous
You
debt.
call it dangerous debt, bad debt. What is smart debt?
What is smart debt, right? Well, we want to use debt for the sole purpose of accelerating growth, not delaying it. Okay, so when I think of smart debt, I think about maybe it's purchasing a new building, right? Opening another location, right? You've run some numbers, you see a great, I had somebody come up to me recently and ask me about this. They said, well, we really want to buy this center, and we've run the numbers and it looks great. And I said, well, what's stopping you? We're just afraid. Okay, well, you've already done the math. You've already researched it. You know that this is a good decision. So purchasing a new building, buying another profitable center, those are some really good ways in which, you can use debt to leverage yourself and to accelerate your business growth.
Excellent. And be careful of that unsecured debt, that high interest stuff. I know like QuickBooks, and you get all these offers in the mail we give you $50,000 loan here and there, but it's like 18-20% interest. I've had many clients get in serious financial trouble taking these little bridge loans that are 20% interest, and it doesn't sound very much, but you'll never pay it off, and you're just going to be a slave to that interest. It's horrible. You're better off to have some kind of secured debt or a credit card that you pay off. I won't even mention the credit cards because I pay my credit cards off every month, but your credit card should never be used to do anything other than a charge that you're going to pay off at the end of the month. You should never be using that for borrowing in your business ever, because the interest rates. But there are loans you could do that secure against your home, maybe a home equity line of credit that have a lower interest rate if you need it. But you talked a little bit about personal financial statements earlier. What is one if nobody's ever heard of one? And is it something that people have to have a banker do, or can they do it themselves?
Well, it's not something that you have to have a banker do, but if you find a good one that you trust, that you like, they will help you with that. Or a good accountant, right? We have an excellent one here. And a personal financial statement, the best way I could explain it, right, in simple terms, is to put everything that you own, right, that's considered an asset on paper, and have an understanding of what it is that you're worth, right? Your buildings, your cars, your cash, all of those things, right? And having an understanding of what it is that you're worth. Would I be pretty correct in saying that, Brian?
Assets versus minus liabilities equal net
Right.
worth. So that's it. How much cash should you have? If you were to sell everything you own and pay off everything you owe, how much would you have left? That is basically a personal financial statement. That's your net worth. And you'd be surprised when you do that, what your number is. I've had clients do this and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea I was a millionaire. And it was like, I have $1 million net worth. They had no idea because they were just busy living their life day to day. And obviously, the last thing we're going to talk about with this is down payment. Because a lot of times they're not giving your money away without you having some skin in the game, because that lowers the risk of the banker. If they're going to give you 50,000 unsecured, they're going to charge you a high interest rate because there's a huge risk with that. They have nothing attached to that. That if you default, they have nothing they can go grab, right? So if you have a property, they're going to secure it with a down payment, and they're going to secure it with the property. But if they were to sell that property, they might have to sell it for 20% less. So they're going to want that 20% down payment to hedge what they could lose if you default. So what is the normal down payment rates that you see on commercial properties, Thomas? Normal.
Yes, it really depends on the lender. It depends on the type of product. But on average, I would tell you it's going to be anywhere between 10 and 30%. But more likely, it's going to be between 10 and 20%. That's typically what we're going to ask.
All my borrowings at 20. I've never done SBA with any of our things, but I know the Small Business Administration will work a lot of people, and a lot of our new people go into that route, and that's a 10% down payment. So, $1 million property you buy, you're going to have to come up with $100,000 of your own money with this. So, I've had many people that are, home providers want to start a daycare center, a center. And I was like, how much money do you have? I have $3,000. It's like, well, you might have to save a little bit more and rent a building. You're not looking at buying $1 million build. My first daycare center I started for $5K inside a church. So I had to start small because I didn't have any money. We were very poor when we first started. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you're a home provider like Carol and I were 30 years ago, look where you could end up 30 years later if you make good decisions, borrow properly, smart debt. Like, I made great financial choices along the way. I didn't get into a lot of debt. I never financed on a daycare property. To build my daycare business, I did it debt free. And I only started borrowing is when I started buying investment properties. Now, granted, I probably could have grown bigger and faster if I did borrow. So I know it's leverage, use a bank, other people's money, OPM, we call it. But it's just the way I wanted to build my business, but you build it the way you want. So, this is really good training here. And I tell you, this is what we do in Child Care Genius University. We focus on teaching people finance. Thomas is actually one of our financial coaches. Every 2 weeks, he does a training with all of our members. And anybody that wants to talk about personal finance or lending or anything like that can meet with Tom as part of our coaching program. So if you want to learn more, just go to our website at childcaregenius.com. Under the coaching tab, say, I'd like a free coaching call. Get on somebody on our team and learn a little bit about what our Child Care Genius University is. We'll even help you with any area that you may be struggling in your business, including finance. So I want to thank you, Thomas, for taking time out of your busy life. And your busy life is busy because of me. And I'm sorry about that sometimes, but I appreciate all you do for us, with Carol and I, and your friendship for sure. So thank you for coming on Child Care Genius podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you both very much, and I look forward to doing this again sometime.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Childcare Genius podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future episode. Don't forget to visit our website at childcaregenius.com to see a list of services we offer to help grow your childcare business. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the Childcare Genius community.